Okay. We are going to record the class today.
Yes. Eso estoy.
Guadalupe is here. Remember? Remember, we have to read chapter 4 from the book.
Yes.
Yeah. And then we are going to tell short stories to children, the same as we did some classes ago. Children from 4 years old, let's say, up to 7 years old, more or less. Children from kindergarten and the 2 first years of primary school, more or less, because we can teach them some things in common. Not everything, not the same style, but short stories, chants, and games can be the same at that age. Okay. What do you want to begin with? Maybe we can begin with the book first, because it's something not tedious and boring. And then we can continue with the short stories, which is something funny, and we can have fun and laugh a bit and enjoy it. What do you think about that?
Okay.
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 The book first.
Okay, the book first. Do you have the book there?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Because otherwise we can share it. It depends on you if you want me to share it or everyone has his or her book.
I think sharing it would be easier because we have to look at the screen.
The screen.
Okay. Can I share it, Darío, whether you are the
I
host?
am the host. A ver, ya le hago host a usted. ¿Quiere que le haga host? Porque no sé si usted puede compartir pantalla o no puede.
A ver, me fijo si puedo compartir, si no te pido.
Ahí abajo le tendría que salir.
No, me dice el anfitrión inhabilitó la función de compartir las pantallas de participantes.
Ah.
Bueno, y si no, lo tenés que compartir vos.
Bueno, sí. Pero, a ver, ya le hago host a usted.
Ok.
Así, porque así usted lo va a ir cambiando como usted, digamos.
Ok. Thank you. Yes. Okay, I can share it. Okay. This comes. Okay, this is the book. Can you see it properly?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So this is chapter 4 that is called Describing Learning and Teaching. And we have some subtitles here. Children and language, acquisition and learning, different times, different methods, elements for successful language learning, ESA, ESA lesson sequences, and ESA and planning. Okay, let's begin by the beginning. What do you remember about this first part that is called children and language? What is the most important thing of that part? There you have some letters, some words in bold, like acquisition, exposure, and rough tuning. Who can tell me what acquisition is? Or in what way children learn their own language?
Acquisition is the way in which people or children get language as unconscious.
Yes, very good. We unconsciously, we acquire the language in a natural way, with lots of exposure. Lots of exposure is vital. lots of exposure is vital because we listen a lot, and through listening our language, we acquire it subconsciously. You know that some linguists speak about the silent period. Have you heard about the silent period? The silent period is supposed to last 2 years. That's why children just produce single words or phrases of 2 words up to 2 years old. But once they are 2 years old, they can speak perfectly well. They can make sentences, complete sentences, and they can speak at the same level as children, and they can use a wide range of vocabulary. So it's very important for us, whenever we have children around us, to speak to them every time we do something or we share an activity with them, because until they can speak, they hear and they hear and they hear, and they put everything in their heads. And later on, that starts moving, and they can vocalize and speak their mother tongue perfectly well. Okay, who can explain what rough tuning is?
I think it's adapting the content of the class or what they should learn to the ages of the children, to match the children's age and also their possibilities to learn.
Yes, but here we are not speaking of a class yet. We are speaking about parents teaching the language to their children. So rough tuning
is to use language as simple as possible, avoiding technical vocabulary or complex structures of sentences.
yes,
Simple language.
Yes, we change complex language into simple language for our children to understand us. That generally happens inside the family whenever parents try to be clear and speak clearly to their very young children, especially babies and children under 5 years old. You know, it's something that happens to us naturally, instinctively. We start speaking to children in that way. We simplify the language and we try to make it very clear for them to understand us. Because the final aim is to communicate and to be understood by our children. And this only happens in the home, in the family. Because teachers do something similar, but not exactly the same. It's whenever we do, there comes the cat, meow, meow, meow. That is rough tuning. Or let's go to the train. We are using onomatopoeic sounds in order for our children to understand quickly, you know. Oh, that's the dog, wow, wow. And children start calling the dog wow. After and later on, they will call it dog, you know. Well, the same happens in English and Spanish or whatever language we are exposed to at the beginning of our lives. Okay, then we have, okay, this is very important. There are 3 features needed to be present in order for the children to acquire language. And those 3 things are exposure to the language, motivation to communicate with it, and opportunities to use it. Because which is the motivation they have? For example, if they are hungry, they have to make their parents understand them in order to let them know they are hungry, if they are cold, if they are hot, or if they want to go outside to play. So they have to communicate, and that is the motivation they have. Their let's say, basic necessities. They have to communicate their basic necessities, and that is the motivation they have. Exposure, of course, the more exposed to the language they are, the sooner they will speak it, and the better they will speak it, because exposure is crucial, both in the mother tongue and in a second language. And opportunities to use it, well, we have to listen to our children. Whenever they want to tell us something, we have to listen to them. And if they have brothers and sisters, of course, they will have lots of opportunities to use it. Or if they go to kindergarten, or they have friends, or they go to the park, or whatever friends they can make. Okay. In this part, we have the explanation of the difference between acquisition and learning. What do you think is the difference between acquire language and learning a language? And if you can give me examples, please.
Examples of
I think acquiring a language is a self auto. It happens automatically, yeah. And learning is an action which is enforced. Let's say it's an active learning, like if a foreign language. You're acquiring doing things or listening to your parents or whatever. If you're learning, well, then you have to be exposed to specific tasks, let's say, to acquire them. Yeah, it's not automatic.
Yes, thank you. Very good. Yes, we do it subconsciously or automatically without paying attention to what we are doing, because as you can read here, it's anxiety-free. We are in a friendly atmosphere or a family atmosphere, and we are learning our own language subconsciously. But whenever we learn a language, we are conscious of the process, and we have to study it sometimes and to speak about the language, not only learn it, but speak about it. Start knowing what parts of the language verbs are now.
I think the difference is we learn language because we want to learn that language.
Yes. In the case of, for example, you are young adults and you decide to learn English. That is a decision you have made because you want to learn a second language, and in this case, it is English. But sometimes children go to school and they are exposed to a foreign language. Sometimes it's English, sometimes it's Portuguese or French or whatever language they are forced, let's say, to learn, because that is part of the curriculum in the school. So they have to learn it consciously, and they have to follow the teacher's instructions, and they have to learn some things about the language. For example, how to make a sentence, when the sentence is correct and when it is incorrect. And the teacher, here we have another clue word that is monitor. The teacher will monitor the way their students learn. So she or he will tell you if you are speaking or writing it correctly, if you understand it correctly or not. That is to monitor the way in which you learn. Very good. Well, all the information you have here is very important, but we are doing a kind of quick summary for you to know where to focus. Okay. Then we have a different part that is called different times, different methods. And here you have the description of different methods that all throughout history, and especially during the 20th century, teachers used in order to teach a second or a foreign language. So here they speak about the lexical approach, the silent way, the community language learning, grammar translation. Okay, there are different methods. I'd like you to say just a simple thing about each method. Let's begin by the lexical approach. Who wants to say something about the lexical approach? Here you have a very short explanation. Okay, here they speak about the lexical approach, where it was suggested that we should structure our curriculum around language chunks, as if they were pieces of language. We have to learn them, for example, how to greet, how to ask for a favor, how to ask for a piece of advice as language chunks. Okay, they speak about the silent way in which only students were the ones that spoke and the teacher remained silent. Okay, let's go on with the grammar translation. What have you read about the method that is called grammar translation? Sorry, I passed it away. Here it is. Okay, what have you read about grammar translation, or what does the title of grammar translation suggest to you?
Basically, is the student have to translate some words following some rules, some grammatical rules.
Okay, and what do you think? Is it a good method, or what do you think could happen? It could happen.
I think that is for new students is a good method, but it doesn't good for communicate, for the student can communicate one to each other.
Excellent, very good. Yes, up to a certain extent is useful because we do it unconsciously too. Sometimes we translate in order to understand. So it's useful up to a certain extent, but it's not useful as the only way to teach the language, because as Dario says, we cannot communicate with each other because we are translating. That's okay. Next comes audiolingualism. What have you read about audiolingualism? As you can see here, the bold, the words in bold, you have audiolingualism is follows a pattern that comes from behaviorists, where you have a response to a stimulus and a reward when you are doing things correctly. Well, that is useful sometimes also as part of the class, but not as the only method to teach a language, because it is connected with drilling. Hmm? Have you heard about drilling? Drilling when you repeat a certain grammatical structure many times until you get it inside your mind. So sometimes it's useful, but not as the only way to teach. Okay, now let's continue. Of course, you have to read it all because it's very clear and it's full of examples, and you will recognize some ways in which we learn the second language and sometimes our own language too, because children sometimes like repetition. Then we have this method that is called PPP, or presentation, practice, and production. Who can explain what this method is like?
Is when the teacher presents the topics, explain, and then the students make production.
Excellent, very good, that it is. And can you give an example, or do you think it is a useful method?
Sometimes it's necessary to use it, but it's not suggested to use it, because it's necessary to make the student infer the rules, or and not the teacher to explain them.
Yes, very good. So as part of the class or as part of the method of teaching, is a useful tool that we can use sometimes, but not as the only method. Excellent, very good. And how about communicative language teaching? Who can explain it and say if it is useful or not?
No, no.
Have you heard about the communicative language teaching before?
No.
No.
Okay, so it was a reaction of the 1970s, a reaction to the rigidity of the other methods, especially the drilling method or audiolingualism, you know. And communicative language teaching is very useful, and it's very good to use it because you teach children to communicate, and you use communicative activities for them to communicate in a natural way. And it's very, I really suggest you to use this method because it's more similar, let's say, to language acquisition, because you give students lots of exposure, lots of input, and the possibility of putting it into practice through communicative activities. So in the classroom language, you can use role play or tell your own story, tell what you did last weekend, for example, or what you did during the holidays, or invent a dialogue with a group of classmates. So different opportunities for the students to practice the language in a communicative way. And of course, you give them a frame in the classroom to use the language naturally. For example, the classroom language has to be in English. Can I go to the toilet, teacher, please? Can I clean the board? Can I stand up? Can you borrow me a pencil? So all the language that you can use in the classroom. And here we have task-based learning. That is a kind of learning that is based on tasks. So you propose a task to your students and they have to do the task while using the language. And finally, this is very similar to PPP because finally they have to show what they have done. That is a kind of production in the end, but they really learn the language. Does anybody want to add anything as regards task-based learning?
The students should learn how to perform using a variety of language.
Yes, very good. And yes, it depends on the activities that you propose them to do. It could be whatever you want them to do. For example, if they can cook, and while cooking, they use the language, and they have the final result, which they can use, they can describe it in English too, for example, or you can organize a kind of exposition with, let's say, young students or adults. You can ask them to give a kind of speech or exposition, and that is a task too, and they use the language, the target language, while doing it. Then we have these elements for successful language learning that is called ESA. Do you remember what these letters stand for? ESA? E for what? E for engage, because it's very important to engage your students or to hook them with the activity you are going to practice. You have to engage them emotionally. That's why we tell stories, for example, or we teach them songs, because through music or through literature, through dancing, through arts in general, we engage ourselves and our students emotionally. Then you can put their minds and their hearts into service, let's say, because you put all the ingredients they need in order to be engaged with the class and in order to learn. And we have the S for study, because of course we have to study the language in order to understand it and to memorize some things, to associate it with things we already know. And here it is what I think that it was Annabelle who mentioned discovery activities, where the students are the ones to discover things about the language. That is lots of intellectual work. Okay, and then we have the A for activate. You have to activate what students study and that thing that you engage them in. You have to activate them in order to put the language into practice. So, as you can see, all the methods are interconnected and related with each other, and all of them have something useful for us to teach the language. Of course, we have to use a bit of every one, and that's the best way of teaching the language. But sometimes we are going to prefer one over the other. Well, here you have different examples of how to prepare a class in order to make it useful and interesting and activate your students. And by the end of the chapter, you have this. At the end of every chapter, you have the conclusions. And here you have all the conclusions of this chapter. This is very useful because if you focus on this before reading the chapter, you will know on what things you have to focus when you read that chapter in the book. Here is a very short summary of what the chapter is about and different definitions, very short and summarized definitions about the vocabulary. Okay, now I want to share with you this PowerPoint. Can you see it? Yes, okay.
Yes.
I want you to have clear what's the difference between language acquisition and language learning. That is something I want you to know clearly and to be ready to explain in detail and giving examples. And I'd like you to know what's the difference between L1 and L2. Sometimes we call the mother tongue L1 or the home language or the first language or language spoken at home. And L2 is the foreign language we are learning or we are teaching, language learned at school or at an institute, second language or target language. I want you to have clear that whenever we speak about L1, we are speaking about the mother tongue, and whenever we speak about L2, we are speaking about the foreign language. And here you have a chart of the differences between how we learn the mother tongue and how we learn the second or foreign language. You have this and this. Okay, I'm not going to read it now, but I'm going to send it to you to the platform for you to have it and to study about it because it's a kind of summary of the first part of chapter 4. So I'm going to share it with you in the platform. Okay. Now I think that I think that's enough. Or do you have any questions about chapter 4 from the book?
In the last PDF, talk about foreign language and the second language. Igual que en el primer capítulo de How to Teach English, que habla acerca de foreign language y entendía un poco lo que decía porque era como lo de TLS, TSL, algo así, eran las siglas.
Sí.
Lo vi parecido, nada más.
Sí, sí. Sí, son conceptos que van a aparecer y reaparecer a lo largo de todo el libro y a veces es un poco repetitivo, pero bueno, es la base que necesitamos para después salir a enseñar, saber que esas cosas existen y qué nombre tiene cada cosa, porque nosotros cuando demos una clase vamos a tener que fundamentar también por qué usamos un juego, por qué usamos, por ejemplo, esa secuencia de presentación, producción y práctica. Entonces, nosotros tenemos que saber de dónde viene la teoría de base que va a fundamentar la clase que nosotros demos. Eso va a ser algo que les van a pedir más adelante a ustedes. Entonces, por eso es bueno ir embebiéndose en esos términos, sabiendo la metodología. Y, por ejemplo, en este libro no se menciona, pero ahora hay una nueva tendencia muy linda y se está hablando mundialmente de mindfulness, que tienen que haber escuchado un montón ustedes. Mindfulness. O no me acuerdo cómo la llaman en castellano, pero es una palabra que se está usando muchísimo en todos lados. Y bueno, está muy buena esa manera de encarar las cosas, cualquier cosa que se aprenda en la vida y sobre todo cuando uno enseña a niños, que los niños están conectados todo el tiempo con el aquí y el ahora. Entonces, es bueno aprovechar todo lo que trae un niño ya desde su casa, desde su nacimiento, solo por ser un ser humano, aprovechar eso y transformarlo en algo mejor y no anularlo para meterle nuevos conocimientos como si fuera un envase vacío, como se hizo en alguna época antes, ¿no? Entonces, es bueno aprovechar el potencial que traen nuestros alumnos para ayudarlos a ellos a que den lo mejor de sí. Entonces, de eso se trata en parte mindfulness, y tienen un montón de propuestas muy lindas para realizar, que también si alguno quiere en algún momento traer algo a esta aula sobre ese tema, lo puede hacer. Yo no he preparado nada todavía sobre ese tema porque creo que les comenté a principio de año que a mí me dieron esta materia a principio de año ya cuando habíamos empezado las clases. Entonces tuve que ponerme a revisar mucho material y ver qué les iba a dar, pero no tengo mucho material listo y preparado para darles. Entonces voy haciendo sobre la marcha y me gustaría que ustedes, si tienen alguna inquietud o algo para proponer, lo traigan acá para que también lo incorporemos y lo trabajemos juntos, porque de eso se trata, o sea, renovar la manera de enseñar y que sea lo más efectiva y divertida posible, sobre todo si vamos a enseñar a niños. Por eso me gusta mucho que, además de traer teoría, que también podamos poner en práctica cosas como games, songs, chants, y que ustedes, que yo veo que son un grupo muy capaz, que ya empiecen así con mini prácticas entre nosotros, está buenísimo. Así el año que viene las prácticas les parecen algo natural y fácil y no están como asustados con eso, como ha pasado otras veces con algunos alumnos. Okay, so I think if you don't have questions about chapter 4, we can start with our task today, that is telling short stories to young children. Okay, who wants to share something in the first place? I brought a story myself too. So if you want, I can start by telling you the story I brought.
Okay, okay.
I'm going to start with the story I brought, and then you decide which one will continue. Okay. Here I have a short story that is called Three Billy Goats Run. Three Billy Goats Run. This story is about three goats that live in the green field. One is Big Billy Goat Grass. The other is middle-sized Billy Goat Grass. And the third one is small Billy Goat Grass. So this is Big Billy Goat Grass, middle-sized Billy Goat Grass, and small Billy Goat Grass. Do you remember what goats say? What's the sound goats make?
Be.
Excellent, very good. They produce a sound similar to the sheep or the lambs. So big Billy Goat Grass, middle-sized Billy Goat Grass, and small Billy Goat Grass. The three goats really like eating the delicious green grass. So they were always walking through the field to eat the delicious green grass. But one day they saw that the delicious green grass was over in the field. So they had to cross over the bridge and cross over the river in order to go to the delicious green grass. But what happened? Under the bridge, there lived an ugly troll. There lived an ugly troll, you know. He was always under the bridge waiting for the little animals to cross the bridge and eat them. So one day, the small little the small Billy Goat Rat decided to cross the bridge, and she crossed it. Trip, trap, trip, trap, trip, trap. The ugly troll jumped onto the bridge. I'm going to eat you, he said. And the small Billy Goat Rat said, don't eat me. I'm too small. Eat my brother. He's much bigger than me. And there, the small Billy Goat Rat went to the delicious green grass. So the middle-sized Billy Goat Rat went up to the bridge. Trip, trap, trip, trap, trip, trap. I'm going to eat you, jumped the troll over the bridge. And the middle-sized goat said, no, don't eat me. I'm too small. Eat my brother. He's much bigger than me. So the middle-sized Billy Goat Rat went to the delicious green grass. And there came the big Billy Goat Rat. Trip, trap, bang, 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 jumped onto the bridge. I'm going to eat you, jumped the troll. And the big Billy Goat Rat said, no, you're not. I'm too big. And bumped the troll into the river. Ouch! Shouted the troll, and he fell in the water and he couldn't swim. So the three Billy Goats went to the delicious green grass, and they lived happily ever after. Okay, that is the first part of the story I prepared for today. But as you know that we have to repeat the stories many times for children, I have a second proposal with the story. I'm going to show you something I have here. Okay. If you can see, this is a washing line, and I have the pegs here, the pegs for hanging clothes. So I'm going to retell the story to my students, and I'm going to give them the pictures for them to hang the pictures onto the washing line. So I will retell the story to the students, and they have to hang the pictures in the right order. I could ask them to do the activity in groups, or I could give one picture per student for them to hang them, or one student at a time. It depends. So that is a second possibility of the same story to revise it, for example, the following class or in the same class. Okay, that was my story. Now it's your turn. Thank you. I hope you like it.
It was so interesting. You invented the tale, or?
No, it's a traditional English story. It's very well known. And you have many versions of the story. And this is a version I used with my students 20 years ago when I used to teach children, you know, and the pictures are the same as the ones I prepared 20 years ago. They are very old, but they are still useful. Okay, so who wants to come next? Lily, I cannot hear you.
Oh, sorry. We can we can do the rocks scissors, paper to choose.
Ah, okay, as you like. Yes. Yes, or do you want me to tell you who comes next?
If you want, I can show my the 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 story that I I wrote.
The ones
The
of the red books?
yes, the Goosey.
Okay,
If
that's
you want,
yes, that's a wonderful story, and we have new students in the group, and
yes.
we are recording. So yes, perfectly
Okay,
well.
okay.
Thank you.
Acá me necesito compartir pantalla.
¿Tengo que hacer algo o vos ya solo podés compartir? ¿Cómo
No,
hacemos?
porque claro, ahora me sale lo mismo que le salió a usted.
Ah, entonces yo tengo que convertirte en host a vos.
Claro, no sé cómo se configura acá en Zoom eso. O sea,
Sí,
creo que me tiene que hacer clic en mi imagen, digamos, y ahí hacer anfitrión, algo así. Hacer host. Ahí está, ahora sí.
ahí está, bien.
Bueno, ahí está, ya lo configuré para que el que quiera compartir. The story, the story's name is Goosey. Saco el silencio, ahí está. This is Goosey. Goosey is a gosling. No sé si se escucha porque y se ven las imágenes porque se acuerda que la vez pasada no se cambiaba. ¿Se cambió ahora? Sí, yes, ok.
Escucha bien.
A small yellow gosling would like to wear bright red boots every day. She wears them when she eats. She wears them when she sleeps. She wears them when she rides. She wears them when she hides. But what Goosey really loves is to wear her bright red boots when she goes for walks every day. She walks backward and she walks forward. She walks uphill and she walks downhill. She walks in the rain. She walks in the snow. Goosey loves to wear her bright red boots every day. One morning, Goosey could not find her bright red boots. She looked everywhere, under the bed, in the barn, under the hands. Goosey looked and looked for her bright red boots. They were gone. Goosey was heartbroken. Then she saw them. They were walking on someone else's feet. Great boots, said Gertie. Goosey smiled. Goosey is a gosling. A small yellow gosling would like to wear bright red boots. And that's all. This is the end.
Yes, excellent, Dario. Thank you very much. I really love the story. It's beautiful.
Yes, I like to.
Yes, it's wonderful. Very poetic. I like it. Okay, does anybody want to tell Dario what impression you had of the story? Did you like it?
It was a nice story.
Yes, a very beautiful story. Probably students will love it because they will identify themselves with Gosling. Thank you. Okay, who wants to come next?
So, profe.
Sorry, I was switching on the lights. Okay. Who said me? Annabelle. Okay, Annabelle, we listen to you.
Now, yes. My story is Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Goldilocks. She had a beautiful golden hair. One morning, she was walking on the forest and lost her way. She found a friendly cottage and she decided to knock the door. But nobody was there, so she got inside. This friendly cottage belonged to three bears. Goldilocks was very hungry, so she saw three bowls of pottage on the table. She started trying the bowl of Daddy Bear, but she said, this pottage is too hot. So then she tried the Mama Bear's bowl, and it was too hot too. Finally, the little bowl of the baby bear was delicious. So she said, oh, this porridge is perfect. Then after eating, Goldilocks was tired. So she saw three chairs in a room. She tried the biggest chair and said, oh no, this chair is too big for me. Then she tried the medium chair and it was big for her too. But the smallest chair was perfect for her. But what happened? It broke. So as Goldilocks was still tired, she went to the bedroom. In the bedroom, she found three beds. She sat on the biggest bed and she said, this bed is too hard. In the medium bed, she said, this is so soft. But the last bed, that it was the baby bear's bed, she said, oh, this bed is perfect. So she fell asleep immediately. Soon, the bears came home. And Daddy Bear said, someone has been eating my porridge. Then Mama Bear said, someone has been sitting on my chair. And the baby bear shouted, my chair is broken. So the bears decided to go to the bedroom and they found the little girl sleeping on the baby bear's bed. When Goldilocks woke up, she saw the three bears staring at her, and she jumped out of the bed and ran out of the cottage. She never came back. So we can say to Goldilocks, bye-bye, Goldilocks. That's the end.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
Very nice story and beautifully told. I like the way in which you tell the story. Very good. The only thing I have to highlight is as regards pronunciation, you have to be careful when you pronounce the word bear. Bear is the animal, but if you say beer, beer is cerveza. So they are very similar words. So you have
Yeah.
to make
Yes.
try to differentiate them when speaking and check the pronunciation with a native in YouTube, please. But the story was perfectly well told. I really like it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, who else wants to participate? Millie? Millie, do you have something?
Yeah, the the last tale.
Good. We have new people here, so you can.
Okay. Today we are going to read The Three Little Pigs. Once upon a time, there were three little pigs. The pigs lived in a small house with their mom. One day, their mom sent them off to build houses of their own. Soon, all the three little pigs had a house of their own and they were all very happy. One of the three little pigs made a house of straw. Other of the three little pigs made a house of wood, madera, and the last little pig made a house of bricks. Then one day, a big bad wolf came walking along the road. He saw the first little pig in his straw house with an evil glint in his eye. He knocked on the first little pig's door. And he said, little pig, let me come in, he said. Not by the hair on my chinny chin chin. I will not let you in, cried the frightened little pig. I will not frighten it, said the little pig. And the bad wolf said, I will huff and huff, and I will huff and huff to blow your house down. And the wolf huffed and huffed, and he blew the straw house down. The first little pig ran all the way to his brother's wooden house. The wolf was soon at the house made of wood, and he knocked on the door. Little pigs, let me come in, he said. And not but the hairs on our chinny chin chin, we will not let you in, say the little pigs. And the wolf said, I will have and have to blow your house down. And the bad wolf half and half and growled and blew the house down. Blew the house. The two little pigs ran as fast as they could all the way to their brother's brick house. The wolf was soon at the brick house. He knocked on the door. Little pigs, let me come in, he growled. Not by the hairs on our chinny chin chin, we will not let you in. Then the wolf half and half and half and half roared. The wolf is in his loudest voice. The wolf half and half and he can't blow the house down. The big bad wolf was very angry. He looked at the house and saw the chimney. As quick as a flash, he climbed up on the roof and into the chimney. But the big bad wolf was in for a big surprise. The third little pig had been making soup and there was a big pot of boiling soup on the fire. The wolf slid down the chimney and landed right in it. Ya le encontré. With a loud howl, the foolish wolf jumped out of the pot, ran out of the house, and off down the road. The three little pigs cheered loudly. The big bad wolf was never seen again, and the three little pigs lived happily ever after. Yeah. And this is the end. I am so nervous because the class is recording.
Okay, excellent. Very good. Beautiful story. Very good. I told you the other class that it's very clear and the pictures are beautiful. So it's an excellent story and you told it very good, very well. The only thing I'd like you to be sure when you pronounce the simple past of the word say, say is in the simple present and said, the simple past, only the sound is said. Don't say said when it is in the past. Okay, but the rest of the words were correctly pronounced and the story was very clear and you told it beautifully. Thank you. Okay, how about Tania, Guadalupe, Sofia, Jennifer? Do you have any story to share today?
I have one story I need to share. Let me see here.
Okay, so
Now
yes,
what I have to do.
you can share it.
You can see?
Yes.
Can you see?
Yes.
Yes, very good.
Okay. Okay. This is the story of the porcupine called Peter. Do you know what is a porcupine? Do you know?
No.
Yes.
It's un puercoespín. So this is the story of the porcupine called Peter. Peter was a new student of the school, but he was different from the other students. because Peter had storms. Do you know the meaning of storm? Spinas. And every time that Peter was around a friend, he hurt him. "Oh, Peter, you hurt me," said Penny. So Peter gets sad. One day Peter was sitting in the park when his friend invited him to play football. But when they threw the ball to him, the ball went flat on his storms. Peter was very sad and he felt lonely. So the next day, his friend gave him a gift. When Peter opened his gift, he saw a pile of corks. And he said, "What is the gift?" asked Peter. "I'm his friend," answered. "This is our gift." And Penny put the corks into his spine. And finally, everyone could hug him. Okay, this is my story.
So beautiful.
Yes, beautiful. I like it. Excellent. Very nice story. Very beautiful. Beautiful pictures. They appear to be taken out of a film.
I don't know cómo dejo de presentar.
No sé si arriba te sale un botoncito rojo.
Sí.
Sí, ya lo vi. Ahora sí.
Okay. Congratulations, Tanya. The story is beautiful. And children probably will identify themselves with the story and the protagonist of the story. And the pictures are beautiful. Apparently they are taken out of a film or something because they are three-dimensional. And you told it very clearly and the vocabulary was simple and clear. And these little animals are on fashion, you know, people have them as pets at homes and they are really beautiful and tender. I love them. Okay, thank you very much, Tanya.
Thank you.
What do the others have to tell Tanya? Do you want to give her your impression about the story?
In the beginning, I feel so sad for Peter. For Peter. For Peter.
Yes, we wanted to hug him. It's a tender story and a tender character. Thank you, Tanya. Who else want to share something? Jennifer?
Yes, I go ahead. And first of all, I would like to join me to the initial age of the kids, like between 4 and 6 years. Yeah, so that you don't not get shocked because it's a story for small children. Yeah, and then we make a trip. We will make a trip. We will go to the garden. Let's see what we have in the garden. Mrs. Butterfly meets a blue beetle in the garden full of flowers. Let's visit Mr. Frog. On the way, they meet a red ant, and a green caterpillar. A red ant and a green caterpillar. How many insects can you see? We have a butterfly, we have the blue bug, we have the red ant, we have the green caterpillar, and we have a small little red ant. Let's see. I can see a yellow butterfly, a blue beetle, a red ant, and 2 ladybugs. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 insects. And when they arrive, Mr. Frog says, quack, quack. These are the animals that we found today on our trip in the garden. The next one will take us to the savannah.
Excellent, Jennifer. Very good, very beautiful.
It's for small children, yeah? It's for small children.
Yes, wonderful. It doesn't matter the age of children. Some children also like those kinds of stories, you know, because they love nature and they can learn the specific vocabulary of those animals in English.
And we have the numbers from 1 to 5.
Ah, okay.
Probably good would be to repeat, to read it again and to repeat, and then let them count the animals. This would be if you get a little ahead in the same class.
Perfect. Yes, you can teach colors, numbers. You can teach them to count, to discover little insects in their own gardens later on and bring the stories of their own. Okay, excellent story, very beautiful. And you teach children to take care of animals and nature in general. Yes, and you created a kind of suspense when you turned the pages and you said, let's see. So those little tips are very important too, to create suspense and to be charming when you tell the story. Those are very good elements when telling stories. Thank you. Okay, how about Guadalupe? Guadalupe, do you have anything to share with us? Yes?
Yes, I have it. I'm going to read The Wolf too. Once upon a time there was a wolf who liked to eat more than anything else in the world. As soon as one meal was finished, he began to think about the next one. One day, the wolf got a craving for chicken stew. He spent the day in the woods looking for a tasty chicken and finally saw a hen. Oh, it's just what I need, thought the wolf. And the wolf stalked its prey until it was close, but when it was about to grab it, another idea occurred to him. If there was a way to make this bird a little fatter, it would have more meat to eat, he told himself. The wolf ran home and started cooking. First, he made 100 delicious pancakes, and the evening he left them at the door of the hen house. Eat well, little chicken. Get fat and tasty for my stew. The wolf whispered as he put down the food. The next night, he brought the hen 100 tasty donuts. Eat well, my little chicken. Get fat and tasty for my stew. The next day, he brought her an appetizing cake that weighed over 100 kilos. And licking his lips, said, "Eat well, cute little chicken. Get fat and tasty for my stew." At last the night the wolf had been waiting for arrived. He put a huge pot on the fire and happily went out to get his food. That little chicken must be as fat as football, he thought. I'm going to see her. But he just peeked through the keyhole, the door opened, and the hen cackled. Ah, so it was you, Mr. Wolf. Children, children, pancakes, donuts, and that delicious cake were a gift from God. Uncle Wolf brought them, the hen said. The grateful chicks jumped on the wolf and gave him 100 kisses. Thank you, Uncle Wolf. You are the best cooking in the world. Uncle Wolf didn't eat stew that night, but Mother Hen made him a delicious dinner. I have not had chicken stew, but I have made the little ones happy, he thought as he walked home. Maybe tomorrow I made them 100 tasty cookies. And that's the end.
Okay, excellent, Guadalupe. Thank you. Very nice pictures and very nice story. Thank you. Okay. I would suggest you next time to simplify the story. Maybe you can use less words and more pictures, but it's beautiful. I like it. Probably for elder students, maybe 6 or 7 years old, because yes, they have to imagine what you are telling besides the pictures. Okay, congratulations, very good. Does anybody want to tell something to Guadalupe about her story? Give her some feedback of any kind?
Excellent.
Okay. How about Sofía Jaime? Do you have anything to share today?
Sí, profe, pero puede verme porque me sale negra la pantalla.
Sí, no,
No,
nosotros
no se ve.
te escuchamos perfectamente, pero no te vemos. ¿Cuál será el problema?
No sé por qué me sale como que tengo activada la cámara, pero me sale negra la pantalla.
Qué raro eso, ¿no? A ver, no sé si a ver si tocando algo yo no me da ninguna opción. Y lo que podemos hacer, si vos querés, Sofía, porque ya nos estamos acercando a la hora del final de la clase, ¿querés presentarla el martes que viene? Sofía,
Bueno, profe,
¿sí?
ahora me sale que no puedo activar la cámara porque el anfitrión la deshabilitó.
Ahí fíjate si podés. Te la desactivé y ya lo voy a activar.
Ya acepté.
Oh, yo la sigo viendo negro, la cámara de ella.
Sí, vemos negro nosotros. Sí, a veces pasa en Zoom que si es un problema que uno no lo resuelve desde el comienzo, es como que queda así, me ha pasado a mí a veces. Pero bueno, queda en suspenso para el martes que viene, si te parece, Sofía, y escuchamos tu historia el martes que viene.
Bueno, profe, porque me pasé todo el fin de semana dibujando, así que...
What a shame, I'm so sorry. Pero bueno, repasala para el martes que viene y vamos a estar acá listos para escucharte. Y me gustaría también el martes que viene que podamos grabar estas clases, así a ustedes les queda el registro de lo que van compartiendo. Y les quería decir que ya tienen buena nota por el solo hecho de estar presentes en clase, pero si presentan estos trabajos tan hermosos que están haciendo, les pongo una super nota porque son como trabajos prácticos. Así que todos los que han participado hoy tienen un 10. Y bueno, Sofía queda el 10 en suspenso hasta el martes que viene porque estoy segura que también tiene algo muy lindo para compartir. Y me gustaría que relean el capítulo 4, poniéndose ustedes en el lugar de ustedes como aprendices de su lengua materna y de una lengua extranjera, para que den ejemplos de lo que les pasó a ustedes a lo largo de su vida con su propia lengua y con profesores que han tenido y su encuentro con lenguas extranjeras, cómo han vivido ciertas experiencias que les hacen recordar cuando leen este capítulo del libro. Así que bueno, sería volver a hablar sobre lo mismo, pero un poco más profundamente, dando ejemplos cada uno de experiencias de su vida. Y también, si quieren traer otra historia al aula para contar, aunque sea no toda la historia, pero cómo la contarían, o algún juego o alguna otra actividad que a ustedes les parezca que sea bueno compartir entre todos. And that is all for today, so see you next Tuesday. Bye bye, thanks for
Okay,
being
teacher.
here.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Darío, please share the link later on. Thanks.
You're welcome.